Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you, Nicoletta, for joining me. I'm Craig Monroe, founder of Elegant Literature, and I'm with Nicoletta Giuseffi, the award winner for her story Across the Line in our most recent issue of Elegant Literature. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, nice to be here, Craig.
Yeah. How are you feeling about winning the contest, first of all?
Uh, I'm still in shock, still disbelief, kind of negotiating what what a big honor it is, how exciting it is. So I'm very happy to be here.
That's great. And now this wasn't your very first publication, right? I think I saw you have something remind me, what was the name of the journal?
Yes, so I have two pieces. One is in an anthology, Moonflowers and Nightshade. And I have another one in another anthology, Mother, Tales of Love and Terror, and those are both horror stories.
Both horror stories. Cool. So I definitely want to talk about those. But first, anybody watching this too, I think is going to want to hear about the story that you wrote that won the Elegant Literature Award for New Writers, $3,000 prize. And now you're an award-winning author. So that's called Across the Line. If anybody's watching this hasn't read it, you should pause the video, go read it. It's a great story. But do you want to just bring everybody who has read it, but maybe it's been a little while, up to speed? Give us, 30 seconds, a minute. Tell us what your story was about in your own words.
Sure. So this story is about a mother's journey to be with her wife and her incoming daughter. Except there's a line that has divided the land, the continent, whatever, that is impassable. So we start the story with the protagonist saying that they're going to cross this line, and we see how.
Yeah, and I mean, it was an adventure. It's kind of, now when I talked about it in my judges' comments, I was saying things like it kind of had like a westerny, apocalyptic, sort of futuristic vibe. Did I get that right? Was that what you were going for with it?
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, lots of really cool stuff. For me, like the horse was actually a robot, or something like that. A lot of futuristic kind of technology clashed with sort of, almost not quite cowboy vibes, but going on an adventure
Yeah.
with a horse traveling. So where, just, we have to ask this, where did you come up with this? Where did this come from? Anything inspired in some way? Just pulled straight out of a bunch of different ideas you had, or what was it?
So actually, I had written or began to write another piece to submit for this contest. And I was feeling it out and didn't feel as strong about it. So I decided to go a little bit outside my wheelhouse, and write this sci-fi story. I wouldn't consider sci-fi a genre that I've done a lot with in the past, but I do love adventure stories. I love travel stories. So I wanted to do something that had some motion to it. So we have somebody trying to get from point A to point B. And my favorite kind of sci-fi is always the kind where, I guess, lowercase s, lowercase f sci-fi.
So do you mean like where you're not going too hard into the science? Is that
Yes.
what you mean, kind of
Yeah.
with the lower cases? Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
you did reference things like qubit, well,
Cubic boron. Yes.
cubic boron, and so there was almost like there was enough details there that it made us feel like there was probably science behind it. But was there? Did you do any research into how that
I
might work?
did. Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of was struck by the idea of rebuilding things that were lost in this nebulous future, using these cubic boron based, I don't know, chips, what you would call them, because I had done some reading that the next generation of computer technology is going to be focused, well, maybe not focused, but is going to involve this cubic boron as a more advanced material to make processing chips and things like that. So
Is this like the kind of the quantum computing that I've been hearing a
I,
little bit about,
I
or?
believe so, something like that. It if you look it up, it does look very cool. There's like these shards of kind of amber colored mineral or so Yeah, I just wanted to include a little bit of science, but also a little bit of heart and adventure. So,
Yeah, and you did that really well, I think. I mean, you mentioned that you wanted to do a story with movement, and I talked about that, I think, in my judges' comments, is that it
yeah,
had that forward momentum. You had the three sort of what did you call them? The gate,
uh,
the going through the
breaches, I
shepherd.
believe.
Say again.
I believe there were breaches.
Breaches, that's right. Yeah, you had the three breaches that your protagonist had to cross, and then they also did kind of three different experiments as they were leading up with their technology to see if they would be safe. And it was always kind of forward momentum. You had the her cell phone kind of breaking up and then becoming useless, and so I felt like you did a really good job with that forward momentum. I mean, obviously it was the winner. Where so how did you go about it, because the theme was Hearts Ablaze, right? So did you start with the theme and kind of grow a story out of it, or did you already have, I mean, you said you started with another one and it was not as strong as you wanted, so you switched. So did you try and grow something from the theme, or did you have some of these sci-fi ideas that you kind of melded in?
That's a really good question. So I knew from the get-go that I wanted to do something, because to me, Hearts Ablaze suggests love. Maybe I'm a little stereotypical in seeing it that way, but of course, hearts can blaze for other reasons. But that that spoke to me. So the original story that I had gotten started with was also this kind of love travel story. So I think I knew I wanted to go in that direction from the beginning. But it wasn't until I pictured what it would be like to have a country or a continent or a landmass separated like this by a line that people can't cross, and what kind of difficulties that would bring to their society. So I wanted to show the the I wanted to show the effects of that on the environment. So you have the three breaches; they kind of get progressively worse. The conditions
Yeah.
are more dire. There's less, vegetation the closer you get, things like that. So I wanted to do something that had this disaster component. Um, but when I started the story, I hadn't quite decided who the protagonist was. And the nice thing about a short story is that this is something I find myself doing quite a bit. Is I'll start writing something, and I will feel through that writing who the character is. They'll kind of become themselves as I get further into it, and that can depend on the day I've had, the mood I'm in, something I read recently or watched recently, or something that a dream I had, whatever it is, something to get that spark going. And I'll take that, run with it for a bit, and sometimes I go back to the starting line, and sometimes I go to the finish line.
Yeah. So I mean, did you have to go back and do a lot of revision after you kind of rolled with it for this one in particular? Because if you didn't really know who they were, and then it feels when you read the story that it's, there seems like a pretty realistic character where they have the different motivations. They want to get to their wife, they want to help save their child, but they're kind of, they have all these things going on. Did you go back and do a lot of editing to kind of bring that out, or did you find it just naturally evolved as you were writing it?
I think it was a mixture of both. So, of course, any story that is good is going to need editing. I don't think anyone can bang out a first draft that really will pass muster. So, I think usually what I'll do is I'll write the story, let it rest for a little bit, and come back to it. And I
Were
had
you
the
able to do
fortune,
that with, we have such a short timeline here, a month.
right?
Were you able
Yeah,
to give it a rest and actually spend some
I
time?
was. Yeah, yeah. I gave it about maybe 3 or 4 days or a week. Um, I had a couple friends look at it just to get their impressions. Do you see what I'm trying to put this character through? Does the world make sense to you? These are two of my my table of contents colleagues from the two other publications that I have, Katie McIvor and G.E. Woods, gave it a look. And I think part of having people glance at a story before you submit it somewhere is that you get a pair of eyes on it that's not yours, which is like
so important.
Yeah, so important. We can't really step aside from ourselves and look at our stories. So I was really grateful for that. And
did you make any significant changes after they looked at it? I mean, you could have shown it to them and said, "Wow, this is amazing. You should go submit this right now." Or they said, or did they have some feedback that you actually had to do a bit of reworking for?
I think the majority of what I had to do was sort of line editing things where, maybe this sentence isn't clear, or maybe the reader didn't get a sense of where the character was here. So things where you need to go back and signpost a little bit more. I found that in editing, the thing that is most difficult for us to look at our story and see are those impressions that you get of where you are and how much knowledge you have of a situation, because to a reader going in blind, they don't have your thought process. They don't have your preparation, your notes.
You have the whole scene in your head half the time. Like, you can imagine the set,
Yeah.
you can just imagine the whole imagery. And if you don't describe the plants well, they won't be able to see them like you do. And so they can get lost. That's a big thing with sort of more quality writing that's more polished, is having the reader be really grounded in where they were. And I think you did that great, for me anyway. I did have a question though, on that kind of note. Because you mentioned the Zephyr line is this huge, hundreds of miles long, natural disaster thing that's splitting the continent in half. But I didn't have too many other points of reference for which continent it was, or because it was kind of futuristic too. So I wasn't sure, is this on Earth, for example? Like, is it North America, or is it another continent on Earth, or is it somewhere else because it's science fiction? I kind of got the idea it was on Earth. Was I right with that?
I'd say so. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have any idea, or was it not something you really thought about?
I did think about it. I thought about making it more explicit. But one of my favorite things in stories, whether they're short or long, is when there are things that are left open to interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I think it can resonate with more people. If something is, if I had really hammered in, this is North America, this character's from this state, they're going to this state.
Mm-hmm.
It might have grounded the reader more, but I think it would have made it more difficult for, maybe international readers to identify with it.
That's totally the risk you do, because if you said you'd name specific states, like somebody like me, I'm from Canada, I might have been like, I actually don't know where that is. And
right,
so
yeah.
I either have to just guess or get pulled out of the story a little bit, or even go look it up to kind of like figure out what's going on. And because if they're not familiar with those specific details, then they might actually be less grounded than they were, because without those, and especially with only 2,000 words, right, you don't have a lot of space. And I think yours was pretty close to the 2,000 word mark, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, 1991, I believe.
Yeah. So with those 9 extra words, I don't know if you could have done a lot of explaining the American geography of the place or whatever.
Right.
I mean, I think it was the right choice to leave it out. I was just curious if you had in mind somewhere like that and had to leave it out for that. But I quite liked how it was a little bit nebulous, because it just leaves it open to imagination.
Yeah.
Like you said. That was great. Another thing I thought was your dialogue was quite strong. I think I mentioned that in my judging comments. I like a lot of the dialogue wasn't just kind of explaining everything. It wasn't just expository dialogue where it was giving, you didn't tell me that it was America by the characters talking about, oh, well, I'm just on the border of New Jersey right now.
Right.
Being explicit like that. It was more of it felt much more real and much more like a conversation two partners would have in that kind of situation, as much as I can relate to the kind of situation they were in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I've always been told that dialogue seems to be a strong suit of mine. I think it may have something to do with my my day job. I'm a faculty for English as a second language at the
Oh,
college here in town. So I do a lot of thinking about language and conversation and things like that. So when I write dialogue, I try to write. I suppose I don't think about it all that much, but maybe I have the voices
well,
of
I
the
mean, with that
characters.
profession, it's probably a little bit almost just kind of ingrained in you just from day to day life. Because with English as a second language, are you interacting with students a lot?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of that's probably going to be like conversational and getting them up to conversation levels. Obviously, writing too. But if you're so focused on English dialogue in your day to day life, I can see how that would translate well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. One thing I try to do when I write dialogue is make sure that nothing is too neat. We don't really speak neatly, so it's kind of interesting because when you have description that's not dialogue, that can be very flowery, very, detailed if you want it to be. But then the dialogue says so much about a character, more sometimes even than the description does. So you have to make sure that your dialogue is not the same as your description. You want to make sure you've made the character come out in that dialogue. So
I mean, that's great advice. Uh, so anybody listening to this should take that advice. Uh,
I don't want to go in teacher mode or anything, but
you're not speaking like you're, a new writer, but I guess that probably comes with your profession a little bit as well. How did you get into, being faculty for English as a second language?
so I've taken a kind of roundabout journey to both my expertises. I had originally, when I was a child, wanted to grow up and be a writer. I wrote stories all the time in high school, junior high. I don't think I had any conception of publishing back then. I was just writing to write. Um, and then when I entered college, I jumped around in a few majors and ended up in Asian studies. And after undergrad, I was living in Japan for a year teaching English as a foreign language in junior high schools. And when I came back, I had felt so good about that work, that position, that I decided to pursue teaching.
Yeah, fantastic. And so you came straight from work today, right?
I did, yes.
You did. And does that explain the outfit discrepancy between what you're wearing now and what you had on in your author photo? I think you looked a bit different, right?
Yes. Yeah, I can't quite wear a period Rococo dress at work. Well, I did once on Halloween. Um, but yes, I tried to, I wanted to make that author photo show kind of not just me, but also the kind of, here's an expectation for you of the writing you're going to read.
So is that's not your normal style, or is do you wear that? Because I couldn't tell because I just had your author photo, and I think when I looked you up online to find out kind of more about you, with your on your Twitter, I think it was,
Yes.
I couldn't tell if it was just what you normally wore or just what you kind of posed for with the author photo. So, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. It's kind of funny. I'm always one of those people who's overdressed everywhere they go. I've kind of expressed myself through clothing for a long time. I think part of it is probably having lived in Japan, where there's a big kind of costume clothing culture. So that photo, that author photo, was taken at Cakeland, LA, which is this wonderful art installation in Chinatown in Los Angeles. And so after I had that photo, it turned out that I needed an author photo for these first two stories that I had published. And one of them was about cake in a not insignificant way. So I thought, those
I
things
didn't
go
think I remember
together.
that.
Yeah. But in daily life, I would say if that is a 10 on the scale of artifice and complexity, then my average outfit is maybe a 7 or an 8. So I complicate things, but beauty is pain.
Oh, it's fun, and I think it fit with your description in your bio. You had something. It was Princess Under Glass, and I wanted to ask you about that because I even Googled it, and I was like, I don't know what that means, and I couldn't find it. So was it a reference? Is it a reference to something?
Yes.
Or yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I figured it was something that I was just missing.
Yeah, Snow White, when she eats the apple, she's put in a glass coffin. So
yeah, nice. So since you brought it up, why don't you tell me a little bit about the other 2 works that you had published? Something that had a lot to do with cake, apparently, and both are horror. So this should be a fun conversation.
yes. So horror is my genre, the genre that I've loved ever since I was young. I grew up reading a lot of Anne Rice, I'd say, was my go-to. I think a lot of high schoolers could say the same. And she was my favorite author for a while, and then I graduated to Angela Carter as my favorite author. So my writing style has always been probably informed in some way by those 2 women being my favorite authors. And these first 2 stories that I had accepted by anthologies, the first one was Stains, and that is in Moonflowers and Nightshade. And that is a story about a graduate student, which is something that I understand very closely. They're struggling with a research project. She's struggling with a research project. She's living away from her girlfriend. The only connection they have is the phone. And she has this recurring dream, which is a real dream that I had, where she finds stains and is trying to wipe them up before she wakes up, because she has the sense that if she doesn't wipe them all up, something bad is going to happen if she doesn't get them all up before she wakes up. So I kind of run with that idea.
Nice. And what's the other one?
Other story is called Mother Made Cake. And that is
I remember that.
Yeah. Mother, Tales of Love and Terror. And that story is about, it's a very subtle Beauty and the Beast retelling from the perspective of a daughter whose mother has inherited the family fortune and gone a little off in her grief for the father's death, and so puts her grief into baking, and it goes a little too far, let's say.
We'll have to read it to find out more.
Yes.
And so that was Stains in Moonflowers and Nightshade, and Mother Made Cake in Tales of Love and Terror.
In Mother, Tales of Love and Terror.
Sorry, say it again.
So the title of the anthology is Mother, Tales of Love and Terror.
Okay. Mother. And you have Mother Made Cake.
Yes. Yeah, it's a little confusing, I think.
Something about the title Mother Made Cake is very sinister to me when put in the context of a horror magazine. Like when I know it's going to be a horror story, something about Mother Made Cake is just unsettling to me, because it's something that should be so nice and wholesome and like positive.
Yeah.
It's not going to be somehow like that when you read it in a horror magazine. So I find that unsettling, and it sounds great.
Yeah. I came up with that title because it's been in my head since I was in Japanese classes, learning about using kind of nouns as descriptors or phrases as descriptors. So haha tsukuru no keiki is best translated, I think, as mother made cake. It's a cake that is mother made. So I kind of put that in the title and
I see.
from there.
Yeah. That's great. So those are your those are both short stories, are they?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. And so this would so Across the Line would be your third short story that was published?
Yes.
Fantastic. So 3 short stories. You're now an award-winning author. How's that?
Great. Amazing.
So what are your goals as an author? Like, are you working on something longer? Do you have goals of being a novelist, or is it more of a hobby? Tell me about what you hope for in the coming years.
So, I am hoping for bigger and better things. I'd like to make writing a career, but my teaching is also important to me. So, whether or not I juggle those well will remain to be seen.
So here's a good question I often ask people is, in a year or 5 years from now, if you wrote a novel and it got published and they came to you and said, look, this was so great, we want to give you like a 3-book publishing deal, but you're going to have to be writing full time if you want to meet these contracts. Would you think about leaving your career to go into being a novel, or how would you what would you say?
Don't tell my students, but I would.
I'll edit this part out.
Yes. Yeah, I think I'd have to, because the drive to create is so strong. It's difficult to say no when you feel like you want to create something.
Yeah, definitely. So do you have sorry, I may have missed it. Did you say that you are working on something longer that you would like to, or?
Yeah, so I actually in about 2019, 2020, I did a novel. It's an epic fantasy, about 120,000 words, and I had been querying it for a while. Kind of really my first foray into sending my writing to agents, publications, whatever it is. And it hasn't gone well. So I put that one on the back burner. I think most people's first novels end up on the back burner for a while. So as of, I'd say July of 2022, I started a new novel. This is a horror dark fantasy. I'm about halfway done. And once I finish, hopefully this year, I'll be querying it.
Do you want to tell us anything about it?
I would love to.
You're going to keep, oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So still got a working title. It's called Her Toothsome Hole. And
say that again.
It's called Her Toothsome Hole.
Her Toothsome Hole. Okay.
Let me see here. Just making sure I don't lock up here. I'm looking for my little.
You got a synopsis and everything ready to go?
I have something
Your
somewhere.
elevator
We'll see if I
pitch for
can
me?
find it. Okay, just to jog my own memory. So this story is about a girl who is in it's a speculative fiction horror story, so it's not an Earth setting. She is forced into a convent by circumstance. The convent drains girls of their blood, and she moves from being a vestal, which is just a girl who is quote unquote pure and provides blood donations, and she moves from that role into being something called a purifica, which is like a crusader for this church organization. And on the first outing that she makes as a warrior of sorts, she's kidnapped, brought to the Queen of the Damned, and falls in love, as you would expect, right? And so most of the book is navigating the discrepancy between human and monster. And when I say monster, that's with a capital M. I'm not talking about, just fangs, just 20 ears or something like that, green skin. No, we're going full monster here. So multiple limbs, mouths up the center of the body, just anything you can think of. I'm putting it in there.
Kind of thing.
Yes.
Do you design? Do you like to design your own monsters?
I'm not much of an artist myself.
Well, no, I don't mean so much with writing, but I mean like creatively design, like figure out what the monsters are to like put in your stories to make them scary. Do you enjoy thinking up what they're going to be? The multiple arms, the mouths up the middle, or?
Absolutely, yes, yes. I've always been fascinated by monsters. A monster movie is the best kind of movie. I really like to create original monsters for my work. But that can be kind of fraught sometimes, because if you're reading a book, oftentimes it's much easier to just say monsters that people know rather than inventing whole new ones. So there's a bit of a mix in this book. There are some monsters that are maybe familiar to people, and there are some fresh ones as well.
Or you could do what Twilight did and take monsters we all know and love, like vampires, and give them sparkling skin.
Yes,
Totally
yes, I could.
twist the things, which
I
could be
could.
fun. Totally. So that sounds pretty cool. I'm noticing a lot of your stories that have a bit of romance in them. Do you do like, are any of them kind of, would you classify them as romance, or is it just have some romance plot threads in them? Like Across the Line wasn't a romance story, but it had romance as a driving factor in the character's actions. Less about the romance and more about the strong, loving relationship, of course, in that. But I've noticed in a couple of the other ones, a lot of them have relationships in them. Do you think about writing romance at all, or are you just including relationship elements?
I think romance as a genre has a lot of attributes that I'm not too familiar with. I've never read romance myself. But I do, for whatever reason, I'm compelled to include it in stories oftentimes, just because it can be a great framing device for a conflict, for the reason somebody might do something. So yeah, I would say I do like an element of the romantic, but I don't think I could manage to write it a purely romantic story.
And sometimes, I mean, I think that horror and romance would be a little difficult to do fully together.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I didn't say, I said I couldn't really do a full romance, but
I
there
see.
is some romance in this work in progress. So
Yeah, it sounds like it. So that's pretty exciting. Do you have what's your kind of writing process like for a longer work? Because I know you mentioned with the short stories you start and you kind of have the idea a little bit and you go at it and see who the protagonist kind of becomes, and you're able to do that in a month and put it aside for even a week and then get feedback and edit it. That's a very short term. Do you just scale that up for a novel, or how do you organize your time between work and writing? And tell me about that.
I'd say it's fairly similar. I'm what they call a pantser, which is like a seat of your pants, I'm guessing. I usually don't plan all that much prior to starting a story, but oftentimes once I've felt it out for a few pages, I have a much better idea of where I want to take it. So usually what I'll end up doing for a short and for a longer story is I'll start writing something, see if I click with it, see if I know where I'm going with it. And then I'll start to take notes, and I'll start a couple documents that maybe have character details, goals, a really rough plot outline. And then the further I get, I can start making things a little bit more organized, maybe by chapter. I have the scenes. But for the most part, I would say that the main difference between writing a short work and a longer work is that when we are writing a longer work, it's much easier to forget things that we've written before. If you start a story in July and you're still writing it in December, there's a lot that you wrote in July that you don't remember. And so for that reason, I'm constantly having to jump back and see if I can get the facts straight. Of course, that's kind of a bad habit because I know you can catch those things in editing, but I kind of like going back and forth, because sometimes when you reread the opening of a story or the first couple chapters of a story, you can get a new perspective on it if it's been a while since you wrote it, and that might inform what you write going forward. So I'm definitely not afraid to engage with what I've written while I'm still writing it.
Yeah, cool. Great. And how long have you been working on this one for?
Since about July of last year.
Yeah, okay, I see your July to December timeline there. That was
Yeah,
just an actual
give or take.
experience you had. And how long did it take you to write your epic fantasy?
That one took uh, maybe a year, and then another half a year to edit it, I'd say.
Fantastic. And I guess, do you want to tell me about that one a little bit while we're here, or you want to just keep that for your querying?
I could, yeah, yeah, why not?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think because it was my first big project, um, the querying process has been uh, difficult because I was learning the querying process as I was doing it.
Hmm.
Uh, so I'm okay with this being on the shelf for a little bit. But this story is basically about a uh, a society wherein they have a goddess who kind of shepherds the world through these different eras, and she has been doing so for a long time. And one of her chief uh, warriors is kind of getting tired of his job as a enforcer of her will, and so he starts to show defiance, is promptly punished, and through that gets involved in this plot to unseat her. And keep in mind, these are mortals plotting to unseat a goddess, so it's very fraught. And there's a lot of kind of court intrigue and uh, plots and things like that. It's a gunpowder fantasy,
Hmm.
um, and it's presented from the perspective of talking animals. So think
Oh.
Robin Hood, but everyone has back pain and they're swearing at each other. Because I like to have mature older characters most of the time because lived experience is it's fun for me to write. So
Hmm. Fun. I mean, that sounds exciting. I wish you good luck with getting a home for that, and I want to know when you do.
oh,
Um,
thank you.
so, what else? I had something else I was going to ask you. Oh, I was wondering, do you work? Do you write at home? Like, are you sitting in your writing space right now, or do you go to a coffee shop? Where do you go to write? Do you have a busy household where you have lots of distractions, or you?
Um, I keep the house nice and quiet. I think I have an office in here, but um, I kind of feel like I can write anywhere. I've taken the laptop to a coffee shop once in a while, but most of the time I'm in my either my office or my living room, because I like to surround myself with a lot of art and things that inspire me. So when I'm in this space, it's a lot easier to get to get the writing flowing.
I understand completely. I used to take my laptop to the museum actually,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
and find some out of the way chair and sit there with my laptop and write. And then whenever I'd want a break, I'd just get up and walk around the museum, and there'd just be so many cool things that would inspire all sorts of different thoughts and notes. And it was a great place to work. My membership ran out, and it was just too far away. I decided to work from home for a while, but it was a lot of fun when I was doing it. So I understand what you mean by liking to be surrounded by art.
I think I might try that. That sounds really fun.
Yeah. And I mean, and depending on what you're writing too, there's like different exhibits that you can go that can help get you in the mood for it. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much. Oh, I did want to know with your characters. You said that um, you are find out how who they are as you go a little bit. Do you ever base characters off people you know, or do you have older characters with lived experiences? Do you take inspiration from people that you know and stories that they've told you about their lives to create these characters, or are you making it up totally from scratch to fit the story?
A lot of people say that writers invariably inject the people that they know into their stories. Maybe I do that, but I'm not really aware of it if it's happening because I actually think it's kind of hard. Like I have a difficulty conceiving, taking X person and putting them in a book. So usually I'll start with a character from scratch and see who they are by writing them for a little bit. Um, Yeah, I usually go with a blank slate, tabula rasa, and then, project whatever onto it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't often bring other people in to a story consciously.
Makes sense. I also think that it's probably a little bit difficult to do that when you write in the fantasy, science fiction, horror genres, because the stories just don't have, it's not like real life. You can't just
Right.
put
Yeah.
somebody that you know from our modern world just into a fantasy story and have them remain the same for any period
Right.
of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
immediately have to become different because of the
Yeah.
environment. Yeah, so that makes perfect sense. So that's pretty much everything that I had to ask you. I was wondering though, now that you're an award-winning author, so do you have any advice for anybody watching this? And I know this is your third publication, but some people haven't had one yet, and they might like to hear something. So and you have any piece of advice you'd have to somebody watching this that's kind of a new, as yet unpublished author, is there anything you'd like to share?
My first piece of advice is that the long shot is only long until you take it. I certainly never thought I would be a contest winner, but I submitted the story and waited, and here we are. I would also say that we all hate ourselves at times, and we hate our writing at times, but I would encourage those viewing not to let that deter them, because all writing, whether you're writing an email or a story, is a process. And if you allow yourself to go through that process, I think you'll like what you find in the end. So keep at it.
Fantastic. That's great advice. So anybody watching this, check out Nicoletta's story in the Hearts Ablaze issue of Elegant Literature, Across the Line, and also have a look at Stains in Moonflowers and Nightshade and Mother Made Cake in Mother Tales of Love and Terror. Those are 3 published, and be on the lookout for more coming, because I think there will be. I sure hope there will be. I'm looking forward to reading it. So thank you, Nicoletta. Congratulations again, $3,000 award, and some other things. So I hope you're feeling pretty great. And it was really, really great to meet you today.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to meet you too. And if people are curious to check me out, you can find me on Twitter as Dear Nicoletta.
Fantastic. I'll even put that on the screen. Fantastic. So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.